Moments away from tip-off inside the KFC Yum Center, the Evansville Purple Aces out of the Missouri Valley, a 9-win team a year ago, winless in conference play, and Louisville with Chris Mack at the helm now for year number 3. Former Evansville Purple Ace for a couple of years under Jim Cruz. His team last year, 24-7, tied for second in the ACC along with Duke, trailing only Florida State, 15 ACC wins, a school record last year. Todd Licklider taking over a turbulent program last year for the final 13 games. They were 0-18 in conference play, so in his first full season as the head coach, former head coach at Butler and Iowa.
And Todd Licklider, a guy who walked into a tough situation last year, lost a lot of familiar faces, but this Evansville team has had some good off-season workouts according to their coaching staff, and you know, they're going to look to come in here and play loose and free and see what happens.
So Evansville starts on offense. Kuhlman, they're going to look to him to score quite a bit. The senior from Liberty Township, Ohio, one of 6 seniors or grad transfers on this roster. Shamar Givens handles as the shot clock winds under 10, sends it back for Kuhlman, who launches a 3, clips the front iron, but an offensive board keeps the possession alive.
Yeah, and that's going to be a killer for Louisville. You know, you play pretty good defense for about 28 seconds, and you get a tough shot and give up a second one there, but did a good job on the second possession defensively.
David Johnson brings it into the front court, and the first 2 points of the season belong to Williamson for the Cardinals.
And that's a guy that Chris Mack is really, really hoping to have a great sophomore year this year. Because of Malik Williams' absence due to injury, they're really going to have to look at Williamson to pick up a big gap in the scoring area and the rebounds as well. Had a pretty good freshman year, but he's really going to have to step it up this year as a sophomore.
And that's important to note, is if you haven't followed the day-to-day news for the Louisville program, they're without senior forward Malik Williams, who had foot surgery a couple weeks ago, so he's out at least 3 months. Josh Nickelberry is out today as well. The shot clock expires on Evansville, and Charles Minlin, the grad transfer from San Francisco, is out for about 6 weeks.
Yeah, as if Louisville didn't already have enough to replace with their starting 5 leaving, but now they got their most experienced player out for a couple months in Malik Williams, and one of their better transfers coming in. So a little thin, but needless to say, still have some talent on the court, and it's a year where I think everybody's got a built-in excuse with COVID, so nobody's going to look to make any more excuses.
Kuhlman lets it fly and connects and gets Evansville on the board with the 3-pointer.
And that's what Kuhlman can do. He's a little bit of a mismatch problem, has good size, can step out and shoot the 3, and a good start there for Evansville to get their best leading returning scorer in the game early.
It's been 265 days since the last game for the Purple Aces, and almost 350 since their last win. Foul is on Shamar Givens for Evansville.
At the line, shooting 2 for the Cardinals. Number 1, Tyler Lee.
And it's only upward for the Purple Aces after going through 3 different head coaches last year. Walter McCarty was fired on January 21st for allegations of off-court misconduct, and Licklider eventually stepped in to try and right this ship.
Well, there was some familiarity because Todd Licklider had spent the previous season as a full-time assistant at Evansville, had some health issues he had to deal with, ended up stepping away and retiring, and they ended up bringing him back, and it was a great move. The players were already familiar with him. Some of the other coaching staff was already familiar with him. He's obviously an extremely experienced, very successful head coach, having stops at Butler and Iowa, so a no-brainer hire by the Evansville administration.
1 of 2 on the free throws for Jones, and as Kuhlman got into the paint, he got fouled on the way up.
And Evansville, a team offensively that's going to run a lot of motion-type sets, a lot of cutting, non-stop movement, and communication is going to be a big key here today for Louisville. There's going to be a lot of times where they might be forced to switch, and Evansville does a very good job of moving without the basketball, a lot of player movement, and Kuhlman off to a good start so far here in this one.
How much, especially facing a team with the offense like you just described, that Evansville is going to be running with a new look starting lineup for Louisville, is that going to be impacted by how well they communicate?
Well, communication is always going to be huge, but this game, especially between these 2 teams, because these 2 teams are so different than last year, it's not a situation where each team could watch film on the other one and say, hey, here's what they're going to do, here's what so-and-so is going to do. It's such a unique game, and these 2 teams are so hard to prepare for, as we see David Johnson a little bit out of control. Good job by Coleman in taking the charge there. But this season is just going to be so unique in that regard. It's going to be so hard to prepare on a consistent basis from a scouting standpoint because there's going to be so much turnover with the scheduling. So you really just got to focus on your own team and just try to do what you guys do well.
That's the theme of this season, is just to be able to take what's in front of you and control it to the extent that you can. From a coaching perspective, I'm curious if you had the option to say, hey, I can only prepare my guys and not worry about scouting report, or really get deep into what the opponent's going to do. Which would you choose?
Well, you'd always want to be prepared for who you're going to play. I mean, you want to spend time worrying about your own team. Now, when teams get into conference play, obviously they're going to be a lot more familiar with each other. But here over the non-conference schedule, just because of the change and the uncertainty, it's going to be an adjust and improvise type season. There's no doubt about that.
17-footer for Carleek Jones rims out, elected a team captain. A grad transfer from Radford, along with Malik Williams, who, as we mentioned a couple moments ago, is out for about 3 months. Evansville with the early 2-point lead. This is Givens on the drive, and he kicks to the corner. 3-point try is off back iron and belongs to Louisville.
And a good job there by Evansville getting back in transition. Got a little mixed up right there.
And an easy opportunity for Withers. Rolls off at the rim, denying Louisville a chance to even the score at 5.
And Evansville's going to take their time today. It's not a situation where they're going to try to get into an up-and-down game with the Cards. Depth obviously comes into play, but anytime you're playing on the road, you don't want to try to make it a high-scoring game. Just try to get good shots on each possession, and so far they're doing a good job of controlling the pace early.
This is Kuhlman trying to work his way inside. Shot clock down to 1. And that's the second shot clock violation in the first 4 minutes forced by Louisville. A nice job on defense.
Yeah, Louisville's doing a good job so far of communicating on switches, and they're doing a really good job of getting out to shooters with their hands up. Watching practice yesterday, Coach Mack kept reiterating how important it was to be there on the catch with the shooters.
And on this end of the floor, he wants them to be, what he said, more confrontational. Get to the free throw line, create that contact, which Williamson does, but a little bit too strong. And he's whistled for the offensive foul. Just a few minutes gone inside the Yum Center. The Purple Aces up a bucket over the Cards. Today's game is part of the Wade Houston Tip-Off Classic. Houston, one of the first 3 African Americans to earn an athletic scholarship to play at Louisville. Got his bachelor's degree here, his master's degree here, then went on to coach for a year in high school, hired as an assistant to Denny Crum, 13 years. They won 2 titles when he was on staff, and then he went on as well to become the first black head coach in the SEC when he was hired at Tennessee in 1989, and he coached there for 5 seasons.
Yeah, Wade Houston, one of the all-time greats here at Louisville, player and coach, but an even better person, and just a terrific guy. He's done a lot for the university and the city of Louisville and the community. And Wade Houston deserves a lot of respect for his accomplishments here in and around town.
Very cool when you get to coach your son as well, as he did with his son Allen in Tennessee. Just underway, a couple minutes gone by here in Louisville. Mike Cousins along with David Padgett, and a 2-point advantage for Evansville. Givens shifty with his work into the lane, and the ball out of bounds, last touched by the Cardinals, stays with the Purple Aces.
And Louisville doing a terrific job with their hands early, of being very active, putting a lot of pressure on the ball. Got a little mixed up there on the communication and allowed Grivets to get in the lane, but doing a good job early of really trying to lock down those shooters and make everything difficult for the Aces.
Now, we mentioned some of the absences due to injury. There's a foul on David Johnson. That early is number 2 on the sophomore guard. A couple absences due to injury for Louisville. Evansville without a couple players as well. Juwan Newton is not available today. Neither is Peace Ilagoma, who did not make the trip. So they're down a big man and a guard for Evansville. There's Quinn Slazinski into the game with the 2 fouls on Johnson for Louisville.
Yeah, and that's certainly going to be a concern not only today but moving forward for Louisville is just the depth factor because of the injuries, and David Johnson certainly not a guy they can afford to have sitting over there on that bench too long.
Shot clock has dwindled to 3. And a heave from the corner is too long and reeled in by Carleek Jones. Dre Davis sends it up top. The drive by Jones, off to the right. And a hanging finish from Williamson, unable to drop.
Yeah, both teams, which anyone would expect. First game of the year, a little nerves, given the circumstances and everything that's been going on. A lot of new faces, guys just trying to figure out how to play with one another. So a little careless here from both teams to begin, but they'll settle in as the game goes on.
Well, I think, too, one of the things for Louisville is going to be, it's such a three-point scoring team last year with Warren and McMahon. And you kind of knew when the shot clock was winding down or if you got into a little bit of trouble where you could go with the ball. And now there's so many more shots that have opened up in the offense.
Yeah, well, you rely so heavily last year on Jordan Warren and Ryan McMahon, two of the better three-point shooters in Louisville history, for so many of your points. But you also had guys inside who could score, so your spacing was different. And now this year there's just... and we're going to continue to talk about it and probably beat a dead horse, but there's so many unknowns just with guys not having played with each other. Practice rhythm has been messed up. Is a good finish inside there by J.J. Traynor, but it's just going to be one of those seasons that you just got to take it one day at a time, and as you go along, you'll start to get a little bit more comfortable. Great pass there by Sam Williamson. Good job by J.J. Traynor, catch and finish. And this is a freshman, a local product here from Bardstown High School that, speaking with Coach Mack yesterday, he's really high on it. It moves well, is very, very skilled. Will get stronger, obviously, as his career goes on, but there's somebody that he's really, really high on, and he's going to get his feet wet here pretty quickly for the Cardinals this year.
6'5".
It'll be interesting to watch as well as this portion of the schedule goes on and we get closer to ACC play, as how coaches refine their lineups and how much young guys get in, and then when Louisville does get healthy, how much that changes as well.
Well, anytime you have so many new faces like Louisville does, you don't want to have to rely on freshmen a ton right out of the gate, but because of the injuries like we've talked about, they just simply don't have a choice right now. Jalen Withers started the game, redshirt freshman who didn't even play last year. Last time he played competitive basketball was 2 years ago in high school. So, you're just going to be relying on guys that just haven't been there, but you know what? The old saying goes, it is what it is. So these guys are just going to have to learn how to play, and they're just going to have to get acclimated more quickly than maybe a coaching staff would like.
Back-to-back possessions now where a Cardinal works his way to the basket and ends up at the free throw line. And the first for the freshman, Dre Davis, comes up short.
Noah Frederick, number 31, Ian Anarudu, and 1
So Kuhlman now has to sit with a couple of substitutions for Evansville. And the second goes for Davis.
And Evansville, another team that not overly deep. Certainly foul trouble is something you want to keep an eye on and try to stay away from. And conditioning right now, too, as well for both these teams. Because if you think about it, no exhibition games this year. No, quote-unquote sequence scrimmages like every team does every year. So this is the first time, literally, that these guys have played against somebody else besides each other in practice. So it's just going to take a little bit of time to get used to each other.
Takeaway for Davis that helps start the break. Kick to the corners. Lazinski lets the three-pointer fly. And the Cardinals are doubling up the Purple Aces 10-5.
And that's a very welcome sight for the Louisville Cardinal coaching staff. It is Quinn stepping in, knocking down that three. And like we talked about at the Open, just where are the points going to come from this year for Louisville? Having to replace so much. And if they can get guys to come off the bench and contribute like that, Coach Mack will be really happy.
For an offense that loses 75% of its scoring from a year ago, and trying to replace the loss of 66% of the rebounds that were grabbed in the 1920 season as well.
Yeah, three guys that are about to embark on their professional journey, and guy Ryan McMahon, who's a terrific 5-year player, one of the better shooters. So, like we said, a lot for this Louisville team to replace.
Cardinals come into the season picked 5th in the ACC preseason poll. Virginia, which looked very impressive in at least the first half today, picked to finish first. Then Duke, Florida State, and North Carolina ahead of Louisville.
Virginia looking impressive. There's something new, huh?
I mean, they were hitting threes with ease. They were pouring in the points, and that was something that last year just was not the case for the Cavaliers. So, 5th in the ACC, working toward full strength, and after being down after the first 4 minutes, up 5 over Evansville. There's more basketball coming your way after this one. Number 16, North Carolina, Garrison Brooks, Caleb Love, R.J. Davis open their season against the College of Charleston. And then NC State and the Wolfpack take on Charleston Southern at 8 Eastern. And that's all right here on ACC Network and wherever you go on the ESPN app. With David Padgett, Mike Cousins, and Evansville has yielded the last 7 points to Louisville. So out of the timeout, look to inch a little bit closer for the team out of the Missouri Valley Conference, picked last in the 10-team league this year. Preseason favorite in that league is Northern Iowa.
In Evansville, a team that's not going to rely much on interior scoring this year. They know where their bread is buttered. They're a three-point shooting team, and so far not shooting the ball well. 1 of 10 out of the gate from three. But, you know, a team that's just going to continue to shoot them. And as long as they can continue to shoot them, they have a chance to make them.
You know, they started off their season in quite an amazing fashion last year, taking down #1 Kentucky on the road in the second game of the season, but really hit a speed bump once they got into conference play as they went 0-18. So a lot of room for improvement this year. Offensive board grabbed by Jones, and his scoop goes up off glass and falls for 2.
And Carly Jones, like we mentioned, a kid that Chris Mack is pretty much going to hand the reins to and say, this is your team this year. And, you know, has the ability to score at all 3 levels. Can get to the rim, like we saw there. Has very good mid-range game. Is capable of stepping out and shooting the 3. And a terrific defender. Was really impressed with him in practice yesterday, getting after the ball. Jones does a good job there of following his own shot. Ball coming to him. Nice little finisher on the rim. And getting on the board. Maybe a little frustration there for missing the first couple shots, but settled the nerves a little bit after that first make.
You mentioned earlier, before that last timeout, about not having the scrimmages, not having the ability to have exhibition games. What makes those so important leading into the start of the season?
Well, for the new guys especially, just getting the nerves out of the way. You know, our coaching staffs used to always joke that the first exhibition game was always going to be a debacle because the adrenaline, the excitement, and the new guys being under the lights for the first time in front of fans, and you got it out of the way. You normally play 2 exhibition games, so by the time that first game rolled around, everybody kind of knew what to expect and could calm down. And great move there by Carly Jones. Great finish, chance for the 3-point play, but you know, it's so tough. Eventually you get tired of practicing against each other every day in practice. You get excited to play against somebody else, and you put them in front of people, and there's just those nerves. But great job there by Carlik, being under control, using his body well to shield off the defender. A little sidestep and a chance for the old school 3-point play.
It says quite a bit, I think, about him that he was voted as a team captain this year. Guy coming in out of Radford, the Big South Player of the Year, and the only guy in the country who averaged at least 20 points, 5 rebounds, and 5 assists.
Yeah, rated as the #1 transfer available last year, and an absolute huge get for Carlik Jones for Louisville to pick him up. And yeah, just like we mentioned, reigning Big South Player of the Year, had a terrific year last year, and this is looking to do big things for the Cards this year.
Footer off back rim for Kuhlman.
And even though Evansville's struggling to shoot from the floor right now, Louisville's doing a great job of limiting them to 1 shot. Evansville had an offensive rebound on the very first possession, but it has not had one since. And it's going to be a long night for the Aces if they're not able to hit shots and not able to create second chance opportunities.
Williamson, a couple dribbles, fades away, and that shot is pure.
Yeah, good job there by Sam of using his length, getting to his spot in the middle of the lane, just shooting over a smaller defender.
Not a rotation guy last year. Only got 1 start, but not necessarily a reflection of his ability, but just the makeup of the team. Kuhlman sneaks underneath, turn around from the block.
Yeah, essentially Sam Williamson was playing behind Jordan Moore last year, and just not a whole lot of minutes to be had. But he did get the experience. He got on the floor. He played through an ACC season, and you know, like we mentioned, Chris Mack is really going to rely heavily on him, not only from a scoring standpoint, but a rebound, defensive standpoint, a leadership standpoint. And, you know, Sam Williamson, terrific player coming out of high school out of Texas, very, very heavily recruited, and a guy that Louisville's looking to have a great career here and a great year this year as a sophomore.
former McDonald's All-American, and one of the things that Max said was most impressive this year was just the way that he developed his body, which that was a challenge for a lot of guys in teams across the country, because when players went home and we were all at home for 4, 5, 6 months, what you could do depended on what you had access to, whether it was a gym or just being able to do pull-ups on a tree out in your yard.
Yeah, I mean, you had a couple choices. You could either sit on the couch and play PlayStation and watch TV, or you could get in the gym and work. And, you know, all these guys at college basketball are so hungry to continue to improve, and especially with the way last year ended, I'm sure there was a lot of desire by a lot of these guys to get back out on the court, get anxious to do so. And Sam Williamson did a terrific job this year. As we see the missed three there by Jack Slevich. But this whole Louisville team, just once they were able to get back on the court in summer workouts, I think there was just a big sigh of relief.
And on that three-point try by Levich, something notable just looking at that end of the floor, all the purple jerseys had quickly retreated back to the other end.
Yeah, you know, it's twofold. When a team like Evansville stresses, great rebound there by Louisville, a team like Evansville stresses getting back in transition to not allow any easy points by Louisville, you're obviously not going to get a lot of offensive rebounds, but I think that's a sacrifice that the Purple Aces are willing to give up today.
Foul sends Aiden Yehan, the sophomore, to the line. Perhaps coming into college basketball last year, one of the most intriguing players just because of the physical specimen that he was and continues to be.
Oh, no question about it. Terrific athlete, very, very strong, great build. Just hasn't been playing basketball very long. Only a couple of years. Is originally from Ireland. Went to school in the New York City area. But again, like we talked about, with a lot of these Louisville front court players, with Malik Williams and Charles Minland being out and missing time, these guys are getting thrown to the fire, and they're going to have to get some experience in a hurry.
Louisville up 11 over Evansville. Kuhlman had a hot hand to start. This is Givens who floats it, and it hits every part of the rim before it falls out. 7:59 first half. Although Evansville's last win was December 21st of last year, they had one big victory. We'll show you when we come back. Right around this time last year, second week of November, #1 Kentucky playing on its home floor. Evansville had never gotten a road win over a top 25 AP team, and the impossible became possible as Evansville defeated Kentucky 67-64. However, a lot of the key pieces from that team are now gone, and so Todd Licklider faces a very different squad that steps on the floor for him this year, but he is a guy who has seen just about everything in college basketball.
And that highlight will never get old in the eyes of the Louisville Cardinal fans, no doubt about that. But Todd Licklider's had a terrific career. Did an unbelievable job at Butler. Was followed by Brad Stevens, who we now know is one of the best coaches in the game of basketball, and ABC National Coach of the Year in 2007. And just a no-brainer hire for the Aces back in the spring, and is going to get this program back on track and get them where they need to be.
And some of the pieces from that squad a year ago, guys like DeAndre Williams, who transferred to Memphis. Sam Cunliffe has opted out this year. KJ Riley. Nobody's on that roster this year, so it's a question of, you know, over these first several games, who are the players who step in to help fill those absences?
Well, not only new personnel, but new style as well. I know they had a handful of games last year to try to get acclimated to what Coach Licklider wants, but this is really their first, you know, quote-unquote off-season, given everything that's been going on for these players to get used to not only him as a coach, but what he wants, new assistants for the most part, and you know, it takes time. And when you're bringing in new players and a new system, it's gonna take a while to get everything figured out.
I enjoyed speaking to him earlier this week, and he made the point, which may seem obvious, but also quite helpful, as he said, you know, I'm glad I'm 40 years into my coaching career rather than 4 years in, because there's so many things that you have to try and figure out, and you can't cover all the situational stuff that you want to. So it's really picking and choosing the most important elements to get your team ready for the season.
Well, that holds especially true when you've got new guys that haven't really played with each other. You got to pick and choose your spots. You can't try to be really good at everything right away. You just got to pick a couple things to try to be really, really good at and just go from there.
Slozinski gets the bucket for the Cardinals to get Louisville up to a 13-point advantage. Givens has whistled for the travel, so it goes back to U of L.
Yeah, Evansville out of sync offensively right now, but give Louisville a lot of credit. Doing a very good job of communicating, good pressure on the ball, doing a good job of switching off the ball when they need to. And Louisville just get off to a good start here on the defensive end and turning that into some easy baskets on the other end.
The last 7.5 minutes, Louisville has scored 17 of the last 19 to build its lead. Sunday afternoon, a women's college basketball triple-header right here on ACC Network and the ESPN app. Florida and Florida State without their head coach Sue Semrau taking a leave of absence to care for her mother this year. Georgia and Georgia Tech. Nell Fortner's squad with a win against Georgia State earlier today. And Miami, Ohio will visit Notre Dame. Niele Ivey in her first year as head coach. Buffett McGraw, now one of our colleagues. But an interesting twist for Notre Dame earlier today, announcing that 5 players, including Sam Brunell, their second leading scorer a year ago as a freshman, will be unavailable for at least those first 2 games. So challenges abound for teams everywhere in college basketball to start the year. Louisville up 15 over Evansville late in the first half, along with David Padgett, Mike Cousins. We're glad you're with us to get things started for the college hoop season on the men's side here on ACC Network.
Yeah, not a good foul there by David Johnson, fouling a three-point shooter. Not only was it not a good foul because it was a 3, but that was David Johnson's 3rd personal foul. So a team that can't afford to get a lot of guys in foul trouble, one of their better players now is going to have to sit here on the bench for a while.
So it sends Trey Hall, the freshman from Willimantic, Connecticut, to the free throw line. Coming to Evansville after spending a prep year last year in Missouri.
And a young man that the Evansville coaching staff is very, very high on. Good length, very skilled. Again, just a freshman who's going to get stronger over time and get acclimated to college basketball, but can do a lot of things for these aces and is going to have to step in and gain that experience right away.
Substitutions for the Aces, number 30.
So Johnson, having acquired that 3rd foul, will sit on a spaced-out bench that has a personalized seat and water bottle and plexiglass behind it inside the Yum Center, where it seats about 22,000 and allowing approximately 3,000 in for U of L home games right now. Well, today is the latest start date to the season for the Cardinals since the 03-04 season. They started out on November 29th. Good look under the bucket and a strong finish on that possession to get the basket for Traynor.
Yeah, good job there coming out of the timeout set play that was run with quite a bit of success here over the last couple of years. And a good finish there by Traynor. Caught it in a little bit of traffic, but went up strong and baked it off the glass.
Alex Matthews, the freshman, gets it off for Givens, who hits the baseline, and the ball belongs to Louisville again. So you look back to last year, we were saying that the 03-04 season was the latest start as of late for Louisville. Last year, by this point, they had played scrimmages, an exhibition, and 6 games before you got to November 25th on the calendar. It's been interesting to follow the college basketball dialogue too of, the wait for the season to get going. Nice 3-pointer there from Dre Davis. It really isn't that much later of a start to the schedule. It's a couple weeks, but I think it's everything that's been packed into the offseason that makes it seem so much longer.
Well, I think if you polled most coaches and fans and players, better late than never, I guess. But yeah, you're right. In years past, the NCAA has changed some of the rules, allowing teams to start earlier, so their games have started early. You see a good pass there, good finish underneath. But I think with the way everything's gone on in 2020 has gone so far, these guys are just happy to be out on the court. I know I'm happy to be sitting here calling this game, and it's just great to have college basketball back. We've certainly missed it.
Louisville has now hit on its last 5 buckets. Can't get a better look than that for Traynor.
Yeah, and a great pass by Carlik Jones. Did a good job of probing the defense, got in the lane, and pretty easy catch and finish there for Traynor.
Givens, best in the Missouri Valley Conference last year with a 2.6-to-1 assist-to-turnover ratio.
Cardinal basketball.
Purple Aces turn it over, give it back to the Cards.
Yeah, and a great pass there from Hall to a cutter underneath. Good finish off the basket. Haven't gotten a lot of run room so far, but Carlik Jones, great no-look pass here. A little bit of a breakdown of communication defensively for the Aces, but J.J. Traynor is not going to get much of an easier basket than that one.
And it's a nice move for Carlik Jones as well, going from playing at Radford a lot farther from home as he gets here to Louisville, much closer to his home of Cincinnati, where he went to the Chris Mack basketball camp when Mack coached at Xavier.
It's amazing how sometimes we come full circle in the world of college basketball, huh?
Yeah, very much so. So Evansville sitting at 11 right now with 4:06 to go in the first half. Their lowest scoring half last year was 16 points. Bobe for Givens, trying to turn the corner, but he's outsized by Traynor, who walls him up. 7 to shoot from the free throw line. The drive off the fingertips does drop for Givens.
Yeah, and Givens has done a pretty good job so far in this game of getting into the lane. That time was able to finish, but what Louisville's done a good job of is staying at home on the perimeter. Givens has been able to get in there, but he hasn't really had anybody kick the ball out to for an open three, and hasn't been able to finish on the rim, but was able to that time.
Speaking of open threes, Davis had a really good look there. Sometimes the longer you get on the open look, the harder it can get to make rather than just firing in rhythm.
Oh, there's no question about that. People would be surprised to hear that, but a lot of times you're almost too open, believe it or not, and that may have been the case there for Davis.
A bowling pin collision under the basket sends Jones to the baseline. Bobe drives. He gets turned away. Matthews. And it's back to Louisville with a 16-point lead. Alex
Matthews, another local Kentucky product from right down I-65 in Elizabethtown, making his college debut.
The Kentucky Gatorade Player of the Year last year, averaging 23-11. Louisville has done a good job staying in front thus far. Givens, though, quite speedy. Turns the corner, gets 2. As we close in on the half in the Derby City. Louisville up 16 over Evansville. The Cardinals picked to finish 5th in the ACC preseason poll. Number 1, Virginia. And let's look at them because they played earlier today. They played Towson. Last year, their problem was not being able to score quite enough. They won 89-54, shot 52% from 3, and got great production out of 2 first-time players on their roster. Sam Hauser scored 19, and Trey Murphy, the transfer from Rice, dropped 21.
I'm going to make a prediction. If Virginia can score 89 points a game, they're going to run the table and go undefeated this year, because I know you're not going to score 90 against them. That is for sure.
And then Duke, Florida State, UNC, Louisville, Syracuse, Miami, your top 7. Where do you think among that group the dividing line is between the top tier in the ACC and the next tier?
Well, you know, when it comes to the ACC, every night is just an absolute battle. It doesn't matter who you're playing, where you're playing. It's just going to be tough. Wins are really hard to come by, and that's no different really than any conference in the country. But, you know, you look at that. Notre Dame picked 12th. You're telling me that a Mike Bray coach team is going to finish 12th in the ACC? You know, it's so hard to predict. Even Pittsburgh team that had a pretty decent year last year and has a chance to be good again this year. So it's just, you know, you've got your teams, I guess, that finish normally above everybody else. Virginia, obviously, Duke, North Carolina looking to bounce back after a rough year last year. But it's going to be another brutal season in the ACC. I wouldn't be surprised to see 8, 9, 10 teams in the NCAA tournament again. Yeah,
from the impossible to predict category, I think the 1920 North Carolina season in its entirety fits in that category.
Yeah, I mean, just one of those years, Murphy's Law type season. Anything that could have possibly gone wrong went wrong. But they got some pretty decent returning parts. Obviously lost Cole Anthony, a terrific recruiting class coming in. So I'd look for the Heels to certainly bounce back. I don't think Coach Williams is going to have 2 tough seasons in a row.
And for Virginia, it's the first time that they're picked to win the league since the 82-83 season.
That's hard to believe if you think about it based on the success that they've had. But Tony Bennett, surefire Hall of Fame coach, another terrific team this year.
Surefire Hall of Fame person as well.
Absolutely, a terrific guy. Really good guy.
Minute left in the first half. Louisville started slow, and they have controlled this game, hitting 7 of their last 9 from the floor.
Number 10, Evan Coleman. His second personal, team 7.
Second foul on Evan Coleman for Evansville.
And Louisville's starting to settle into a rhythm offensively, doing a really good job of not settling for the perimeter jump shot. They've only taken 5 threes to this point. Now, they've made 3 of them, but they've done a really good job of trying to force the ball into the lane, get to the rim, get to the foul line, and shooting almost 60% here in the first half. So doing a good job of not settling for perimeter jump shots and really trying to get the ball in and around the rim.
Davis makes it 35 for U of L. On the other side, when you know that you're a team that's going to be outsized, Evansville has tried to work it from 3, but they are just 1 of 14 from three-point range.
Yeah, and a team that, like we've mentioned, they rely so heavily upon the 3 that if they're just not going in, it's going to be tough for them to find other areas to score. You know, not much of a post presence, but just got to stick with what they do. You know, at some point, law of average will take over, and you'll hit some of these 3s, but just got to continue to take good shots. That's the most important thing.
Drive and kick. And a charge under the basket. That's Carleek Jones taking the charge. He got hit on the baseline earlier attempting to take a charge, got a no call, and this time does get rewarded for it.
Well, yeah, and a terrific job there stepping in, knowing that Evansville's a big driving kick team, got his feet outside the charge circle, and probably saved the basket because a couple guys wide open on the other side. So great job there by Carleek Jones defensively to step in and take that.
Now, he in practice has worn the gold jersey quite a few times so far already this year. What does that signify?
Well, obviously one would think that it signifies that he's been playing the best, but he's, like you mentioned, he's voted captain. It's his first year on the team. That right there says a lot to me, but just brings the effort every day. Just knows that he can't take a day off if this team's going to have a chance to have a good year. So just what you would expect out of your senior captain.
He pulls up from 18, and it rattles off. A chance for one more attempt for Evansville before the half. This is Levitch stepping into a 3, and he hits it. They finish the half 2 of 15 from beyond the arc and find themselves staring at a 20-point gap between them and Louisville.
Louisville off to a great start here tonight. Carleek Jones stepping in, first game in the Yum Center, knocking down the 3. Cardinals in control here early at halftime.
Slow out of the gates, but the Cardinals looking good through 20 minutes. Up 36-16 over the Purple Aces of Evansville out of the Missouri Valley. Along with David Padgett, Mike Cousins, we'll look at Carleek Jones in his first game in black, white, and red. So far, so good.
Yeah, a guy we knew that was going to have to carry the load for this team this year, and showed that in the first half. Did a great job of getting in the lane, getting to his spots, finishing around the rim through contact there for the three-point play. Did a great job of setting up teammates. Great bounce pass there for the easy dunk. And pretty much did it all for the Cardinals. See him here stepping out way behind the three-point line, knocking it down. Certainly something he's capable of doing. So a terrific half for number 1 in white.
He shot it well, distributed well. What Evansville did not do, however, to match that was shoot the ball well. 5 of 24 and just 2 of 15 from 3. So a small team outsized against this Louisville squad. We'll have to try and do a little bit better from beyond the arc in the second half as they endeavor for their first win since December 21st of 2019 against Murray State. 340 days since their last victory, a squad that a year ago was 9-23 and 0-18 in conference play.
Yeah, pretty much everything that could have gone right for Louisville in the first half did. Shut the ball really well, got into the lane. To me, for Louisville, the important stat there was they only attempted 5 threes. Out of 23 field goals, only 5 of them were threes, didn't settle. Evansville's tried to pack it in. They've switched up, gone zone a couple times, but Louisville was determined to get to the rim, did a good job of doing so.
If you're just joining us for Louisville, a couple players not available today. Josh Nickelberry out as he recovers from arthroscopic knee surgery procedure on his meniscus. That's a charge that's going to go against Louisville. The other players out, Malik Williams, who's out for about at least 3 months with foot surgery to repair a fracture in his foot. And Charles Midland, the grad transfer from San Francisco, a sprained MCL in his left knee. It doesn't require surgery, but it'll keep him out an estimated 6 weeks. So we did see some good play from young players in the first half for the Cardinals. J.J. Traynor, Dre Davis making impacts already.
Yeah, and that's the way it's going to have to be for a lot of games this year. Yeah. Obviously, you would assume that Carlik Jones, David Johnson, Sam Williamson are going to have big games, and then it's just going to be by committee as to who else can step up and try to help them win some games. Johnson
a little limited in the first half as he picked up 2 early fouls and then a third. And Withers gets tangled up and called for the foul.
And a good job there by Evansville. A good cut and a good pass by the Purple Aces, but that's what they're going to have to look to do a little bit more here in the second half. Is get to the rim, try to get to the foul line. Again, not a team that's going to score a lot inside by post play, those types of things, but because Louisville's just doing such a good job of taking away the three-point line and challenging shots, you got to try to put the ball on the floor and get to the rim so you can get fouled and score.
Noah Frederking, the 6'4" senior at the stripe, native of Illinois, and knocks down the back end as well to make it an 18-point game. Evansville down a couple today as well. Juwan Newton out. Peace Ilagoma, the big man, is out as well. And they're going to get another addition to their roster in the second semester, as Samari Curtis will become eligible for the second semester as a transfer from Nebraska. Louisville last year, best three-point shooting team in the ACC at almost 38%. Second chance doesn't go for Withers.
Yeah, and a pretty good look there for David Johnson. Wasn't able to knock it down, but Evansville's got to make sure they try to limit Louisville to one shot on each possession if they want to have any chance of getting back in this ball game.
No good looks just yet on this possession. That was tipped away, and a chance for a fast break for U of L. Williamson works his way into the lane, hangs, and it rolls just off. You know, we really haven't seen yet, David, either team really try and take advantage on a fast break opportunity.
Yeah, and Evansville's done a good job. It was a big point of emphasis yesterday in practice of getting back. They'll give up any opportunity for an offensive rebound as long as they're able to get back in transition. And you know, give them credit. They've done a good job of keeping Louisville out of the lane on the break. And you know, as long as they continue to take good shots and just try to pack the paint is what they're trying to do essentially. And so far they've done a pretty good job of that.
Well, Kuhlman tried the layup and he was slow to get back down the floor. And that led to an easy opportunity for Williamson at the rim.
Yeah, I guess we just gave him the kiss of death talking about it. But
if only we had so much power. Frederking launches and hits the three.
The best way to keep a team out of transition is to put the ball through the hoop on the other end of the floor. So tough shot there by Frederking, but able to knock it down. And Evansville finally getting one to go from the three-point line.
A lob and an off-balance grab, but the bucket there for Withers, who had to catch from behind and put it in. Talk about the layoff for him, a guy who redshirted last year, playing a competitive game for the first time in more than 600 days.
Yeah, but on the contrary, if you look at it, was able to practice all year, so had a chance to go against guys like Dwayne Sutton, Stephen Enoch, a healthy Malik Williams every day in practice. So he got that experience, just didn't have the experience of actually playing in the games. But, you know, that's going against some pretty good players in practice every day, so you're only going to get better by doing that.
I enjoyed hearing Malik Williams talk about the difficulty of playing against Stephen Enoch under the basket. Just such a huge frame. When he got on a roll to the basket, there's hardly anything he can do to stop him. So that will make a boy into a man for a guy in a redshirt year.
Absolutely. And, you know, Louisville a little thin right now, like we've talked about in the front court. But, you know, hoping Malik Williams will have a chance to come back this year. I'm sure they're hoping Charles Midland will be back here soon. But, you know, it's a good opportunity for these guys like Jalen Withers to grow up and a chance to get those feet wet in a hurry more quickly than they probably would like.
So Malik Williams, the team captain, with the fracture to the 5th metatarsal of his right foot. And the only true senior on this roster. No juniors on this team, with the departures that they had from last year, including Jordan Wara going to the NBA, and Darius Perry making the decision to transfer to UCF.
Yeah, they obviously miss Malik in a lot of areas. You know, not only his scoring, as certainly his rebounding ability, but, you know, a team captain, just as experienced, you know, highly recruited coming out of high school, out of Fort Wayne, had a chance to play as a freshman, really had a chance to play more as a sophomore and a junior, and just knows the system, communicates defensively is probably where they're going to miss him the most, knows what Coach Mack wants, and, you know, a loss like that it's not something that necessarily will show up on a stat sheet, but he's one of those guys that is just absolutely invaluable to their success as a team.
And he's the last player on this roster now to be recruited by Rick Pitino's staff.
Yeah, Malik, a great kid, you know, really just a terrific kid, has a great mom, a great family, and we certainly hope that he has a speedy and quick recovery and is able to get back out on the floor soon.
In for number 1, Carly Jones.
And now, speaking of Coach Pitino, we'll see him in the MAAC MAC at Iona, taking over the reins there, which it was interesting to hear Coach Willard at Seton Hall talk about him. Seton Hall will be coming in here to the Yum Center on Friday saying, I don't know if the MAC coaches know what they're in for with Coach Pitino coming to that league.
Well, one thing I know, it's going to be hard to score against them, that's for sure. But, you know, Iona obviously a terrific program. And I know Coach Pitino was obviously really, really excited. A lot of us former players and coaches who had a chance to work for him and play for him, really excited to see him get back in the game where he belongs. And we're certainly anxious to watch the Gales this year.
Williamson hits the three-pointer. Louisville up 45-23. 4.5 gone in the second half inside the Yum Center in the season opener for both Evansville and Louisville. It's just the second meeting for these two teams since 1957. Evansville had their opener against Louisville in 2016 and lost that game. And after connecting from deep, Williamson finds success at the rim.
Yeah, and of course, as soon as we talk about Evansville doing a good job in transition, they've given up a couple baskets here to start the second half. But, you know, that's what Louisville's probably going to have to look to do a little bit more this year, is score out on the break, simply because they don't have quite the same weapons on the offense in the half court.
Givens gets the bucket and the foul. He'll go to the free throw line when we return.
Black Lives Matter is no organization. It's a cry for help. It is time to take a stand against police brutality and social injustice against the black community. We challenge you to be better. We have to be the change that we want to see.
Louisville players, the team stepping to the forefront, and the calls for equality and justice and unity, which they're wearing on the back of their jersey this year, and wearing the national unity mark on the front of their jerseys this year. It's an initiative that came from the NCAA Division I Student Athlete Advisory Committee, which also created a unity pledge. And so it's been really inspiring to see how players have found their voices this year, whether it was getting out here in Louisville, which has been an epicenter of so much of the national conversation this year, not only to get with the megaphone, but also to help other people get their voice. At the beginning of October, they held a voter registration drive, too, on the city's west end.
Yeah, it certainly has been a very trying year for the city of Louisville. There's no doubt about that. And, you know, with the absence of any professional sports here, not only in the city but within the state, this team and this program has a voice that not many others have. And it was really just awesome to see them use that voice, use their platform to try to promote change, encourage people to vote, and just to get involved, because obviously we have our community leaders, but these guys are looked upon just as much, if not more, than anybody else. And for them to try to use their voices and platform in a positive change is something really, really awesome to see.
Mike Cousins along with David Padgett. You mentioned the stage that the athletes from sports teams at the U of L have. In the absence of a major pro sports team, you have minor league baseball, you have a soccer team, but what is the, I guess, reach for athletes at the University of Louisville, given how important they are to the community?
Well, these guys essentially are the pro athletes in town, and that's one of the most unique things about this city. Is it's obviously a major city, it's a big city, and everything from a sports standpoint revolves around the university. You know, whether it's the men's basketball program, the women's basketball program, the football program, baseball, on down the line, and you know, it may be hard for some who haven't been here, haven't lived here, haven't played here to understand, but it really is a unique position, and it's not a position where there's going to be a lot of pressure put on you. It's just this is a sports crazy city and a sports crazy state, and there's just a lot of enthusiasm, and these guys are in a unique position to really be kind of put in that spotlight in a positive way.
Foul is on Davis. I think enthusiasm is a good way to look at it, because even when it's people who, you know, now players are reachable at any moment, whether it's on Instagram or Twitter, or if somebody's calling into a sports talk show, if there's anger directed in any way, it's out of an enthusiasm because they want the program and the players to succeed.
Yeah, I mean, obviously you're going to have your over-the-top fans everywhere. It doesn't matter where. But for the most part, the fans here are just absolutely awesome. And, you know, I really don't know how these guys do it this day and age with social media, all that kind of stuff. I mean, everywhere you go, there's a camera on you. You know, I can't even imagine what would have happened to me if social media and cameras would have been around when I was in college. But no offense to any of my former teammates and friends. They're all great guys. But we had some fun. But, you know, it's just such a different era to try to grow up in, because in a place like this, you know, the Dukes of the world, North Carolina's, Kentucky's, Louisville's, UCLA's, you're just always in the spotlight, and anytime you go out in public, you're going to be watched, and you just got to it's tougher. It really is. And, you know, I'm sure we could sit here all day and talk about how social media has changed the world, and it's just something these guys have had to deal with.
Well, we've seen now over the last couple of minutes, whether it was from three-point range at the basket there or from the mid-range, Williamson has done a little bit of everything on offense.
Yeah, and he's a perfect guy for Louisville to utilize in the middle of that zone, because he can rise up and shoot over smaller defenders because of his size. He can put the ball on the floor and get to the rim, and he has the ability to pass as well. So it doesn't matter what zone you're playing against. If you get the ball to the middle, good things are usually going to happen.
Speaking of zone, too, as we've seen the way Carleek Jones has shot, they'll see zone defense throughout the course of the season once you get into ACC play. If he can find some gaps, that's a dangerous hot hand.
It certainly is, and there's always going to be one team I know you're going to see zone against for sure every year in the ACC, and that's the Syracuse Orange, obviously. But, you know, teams this day and age are mixing it up a lot more. And I'm telling you, we gave it the kiss of death at the beginning of the second half of the transition here. Louisville able to get out again, and great finish there by Trainer. But, you know, everything seems to be going well for the Cardinals right now.
There wasn't much transition offense to start, but Louisville has gotten out. They've been running and getting it up in the air. The 6'8" freshman big man out of Bardstown, Kentucky, whose dad played here in the mid-90s, J.J. Trainer, throws it down. Louisville feeling good. For 2 years, Louisville head coach Chris Mack, from 1988 to 1990, played at Evansville. And yes, those are sleeves on that jersey, intentionally done so. And now on the Evansville bench, a former Cardinal, Logan Bauman, graduated in 2015, was a walk-on on the 2012-2013 campaign, served as the video coordinator. So ties run deep on both benches on these two squads.
Yeah, Logan, a member of the 2013 National Championship team, and speaking with Coach Licklider the other day, couldn't have said enough good things about Logan and the rest of his staff, and a guy who's obviously very familiar with this building and with this program, and sitting on the opposite sideline now.
And he gave him what may not sound to the layperson like a compliment, but what he said was that people have said no one ever sees him show up to work, no one sees him leave work, and no one sees him eat while he's at work, meaning he is omnipresent at the Evansville facility.
Yeah, he is a guy who's dedicated to working his way up, and really just does it for the right reasons. Wants to help these players succeed, wants to help the program succeed. And I can't agree with the thing about not seeing him eat, because when we used to go out to lunch as a staff here at Louisville, we would all order something and he would never eat anything. We used to give him a hard time about it.
never eat anything?
We still haven't been able to figure it out to this day. We have group texts that go on, and we still give him a hard time about it. But Logan just a terrific guy and has a chance to be a really, really good coach someday.
On staff along with Thomas Jackson and Brandon Crone there, and Todd Licklider's first full season at the helm for Evansville. At the free throw line here for the Purple Aces, it's Tomasi Gilgeous-Alexander, who took a medical red shirt last year, only played in 3 games before getting hurt. And if the name Gilgeous-Alexander sounds familiar, his older brother, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, in the NBA now with the Oklahoma City Thunder. Jones put it underneath from the corner. Davis on the move. Jones makes his way to the basket and rolls it up and in.
You know, what's been impressive to me so far with Carlik Jones is he doesn't seem to really ever get out of control. You know, does a good job of changing speeds, never playing too fast, and has done a good job of getting in the lane and able to finish every time he's gotten in there.
Gage Bobe gets back iron, trying the corner 3. And in addition to that, not being able to be sped up, every move that he makes looks like he's doing it with the exact confidence of knowing what's coming next.
And that just comes from playing a lot of basketball. Like we talked about, the Big South Player of the Year last year at Radford has just played a ton of basketball, a lot of college basketball throughout his career. And one of the reasons why he was such an appealing transfer last year when he decided to make a move, and a guy that, you know, no matter where he went, was going to be successful. But I'm sure Louisville fans are really, really happy that he's wearing this uniform this year.
It's got to be an interesting time to be a player who's transferring as a grad transfer, or a player who's a prospective player as a high school athlete, trying to choose your college, where sports across the NCAA are in a dead period and you can't have anybody on campus. You can just have phone calls, you can have video calls, and that's about it. 58-25, Louisville led by Jones. Their eyes on 1-0 as he's got 15 points. A year ago, Carlik Jones put up those numbers at Radford University in the Big South. And if you're looking for any type of peer with those numbers, you wouldn't find one. The only player in the country who averaged 25 and 5. And now here with Louisville to finish out his college career. And so far has looked quite sharp, quite confident, and has scored 15 to lead all scorers. Game number 1 of the season. KFC Yum Center in Louisville. The Cardinals and the Evansville Purple Aces out of the Missouri Valley Conference. Along with David Padgett, the former Louisville coach and player, I'm Mike Cousins. Trey Hall under the basket, flips it up with the left and leaves it short, trying to score over Slazinski. Jones puts it up and a little bit too far behind Williamson. Now Hall on the move, steps through, and the foul is called on Davis on the way out.
Yeah, again, another good job there by Jones. Getting into the lane. The lob was open, just unable to complete it, but Evansville is trying to take advantage of a transition opportunity. And obviously it's been a tough start for them here tonight, but this young man right here, Trey Hall, I think he's got a chance to be a very, very good player. Skilled, can shoot it, can score around the rim, good athlete. A guy that, like a lot of other players on both of these teams, is going to gain a lot of experience in a short period of time, which will only help him down the road.
So Carlik Jones last year, 20, about 5 and 5. Is that 15 points, 7 rebounds, 6 assists, just 5 away from surpassing his scoring average of a year ago. You know, one of the interesting things that he talked about in the technical aspects of his game to Jeff Greer, who covers this team on a regular basis, was how he improved his three-point shooting. He went from 2 years ago shooting 25% from beyond the arc to then 41%, and said it was just a tweak with his thumb being too involved in his shooting motion, moving that and helping to up his three-point percentage by 16%.
Yeah, right on cue right there. But sometimes that's all it takes. You know, a lot of times it's really not anything too complicated. It's something simple, and you know, whoever pointed it out, whether or not it was he figured.
He said it was
himself.
a GA.
Okay, well there you go. That's all it takes. Kind of like a golf swing, right? Sometimes all it takes is one good swing thought, and you're off to the races. But I wouldn't know. But maybe one of these days I'll get it figured out.
I was going to say, you were what, 6'10"?
6'11".
Okay, so there's not golf clubs that you can grab off the rack that fit. And there's way more spots for your golf swing to go awry than with other people.
Yeah, and that seems to be the case more times than not.
I've never found it to be as challenging with mini golf, though. Not quite as popular as a sport among my peers. Uncontested finish for Igehan.
And Carly Jones just coming off the ball screen, stepping into it, good, comfortable rhythm. And this right here is what Louisville's had a lot of success with tonight. The screen and roll, doing a great job of hitting the roll guy, not trying to force it, taking it when it's open. And that's one of the things that makes Carly Jones such an all-around great player. He is always looking for his teammates. He's not a guy that's just looking to score and get his the whole time. He's really looking to set guys up, and has done a great job here tonight getting everybody involved.
You know, once the evaluation process, we talked about it from the athlete's perspective of picking where you want to play, from a coach of trying to figure out who's going to fit, especially just for 1 year.
Well, it's gotten harder, that's for sure, with all the transfer rules that have gone into effect and might go into effect with some of the new rules and that kind of stuff, and the turnover with guys transferring, and even this year, you know, with COVID, these guys are going to get another season of eligibility if they choose to take it. So it's gotten harder to recruit. There's no question, because it's, you know, it's not a situation where you can say, all right, this is going to be our roster for the next couple of years and we can build. I mean, there's just college basketball and college sports in general has become such a turnover-heavy environment that it's made it harder for coaches to figure out what they need, and you got to really be good at evaluating talent.
Coaches across the country probably had to either pick up some new hobbies or get to know their families a little bit better without sitting in hot gyms all across the country, whether on the EYBL circuit or whatever the case may be, because there was nowhere to be this summer. 7:55 in the second. Carly Jones stays on the floor. Game one as Chris Mack's floor general. Around the country, it's the Big Ten leading the way with 7 teams in the AP preseason top 25. The Big 12, then the ACC with 4, Pac-12 with 3, the SEC and the Big East each with 2, the WCC with 1, and the American with 1 as well. But it's pretty notable at the top there that Gonzaga, which only continues to get stronger with the addition of Andrew Nembhard in the last couple days, is your preseason favorite to win it all, according to Caesars.
Yeah, I don't think there's any doubt about that as of right now. Obviously, this is going to change significantly as the year goes on, and you know, it's going to be tougher this year to get a true gauge of how good a team may or may not be just based on the schedule. I mean, we've already seen so far how many games have either been postponed or canceled, or you know, whatever the case may be. But I think once we get into conference play, I think teams will start to kind of separate themselves, and come postseason time, I think we'll have a better idea of who really is kind of that top tier.
And Baylor with the second best odds there, along with Kentucky. They just had their head coach, Scott Drew, have a positive test for COVID-19. So they've already called off a game that they were scheduled to play on Sunday against Seton Hall, just adding to the confusion of it. Can you give us a picture of how scheduling normally works in the offseason and how it's working now?
Well, scheduling is hard anyway. Trying to, you know, you got to figure out who you're going to play, where you're going to play them, the contract side of things. There's just a lot to work out. There's a lot of moving parts, a lot of games that fall through the cracks. And this year, I just can't even imagine. I mean, just talking to some of the coaches around the country, they were still trying to get this figured out as of yesterday. Some were even still trying to get it figured out. And I know I saw on Twitter the other day, Jeff Walls, the Louisville women's coach, their game got canceled 48 hours out. He put something out in a tweet on Twitter. 2 hours later, they had a game scheduled. So it's going to be one of those years. You got to be able to adjust and improvise on the fly. And you know, coaches are just, and players and all the staffs and everybody's just going to have to kind of go with the flow and just roll with it as the year goes along.
Jeff Walls 2 days ago. Game at MTSU canceled for Wednesday, November 25th. Louisville willing to travel. If you have an opening for the 25th, DM or call me and let's make it hashtag. Make it happen. Hashtag going to be one hell of a year.
Yeah, college basketball scheduling is now done through direct messaging on Twitter. So that's 2020 in a nutshell.
And then a couple hours later, he had Louisville at SEMO. That would be 2 p.m. Central Time for today. And a later tweet the next day, team needed, round 2. Anyone interested in playing at the Mohegan Sun on December 4th versus Louisville on ESPN? DM or call me and let's make it happen ASAP. Hashtag 2020 continues. Hashtag double down. Hashtag let it ride. Which that's a much healthier double down than the former sandwich, I think. That was, what? A couple pieces of chicken as your bun. Remember that one? 6 minutes to go inside the KFC Yum Center as Louisville has its eyes on a 1-0 start to the season.
Also Cardinal number 10, Samuel Williamson.
And they'll welcome in Seton Hall for a Friday tip-off at 4 o'clock Eastern. That'll be on ESPN2 as the Pirates will play their first game of the year.
And a pretty interesting setup here. Obviously, we saw tremendous success that the NBA did. I mean, they just did an unbelievably good job of putting their season on and getting through it pretty much problem-free. But with the bubble set up here, they're staying right next door to the arena. Don't even have to get on a bus to come over here. They can walk. A hotel called the Galt House. All the teams are staying there. You know, hopefully everything is able to stay healthy and safe, and they're able to pull this off. But I think that game on Friday between Louisville and Seton Hall should be a really good basketball game.
Yeah, this is about as close as you can probably get, along with the setup at Mohegan Sun in Connecticut, the Bubbleville, for having a self-contained environment. So Prairie View A&M, part of this tip-off classic, will be Sunday, Western Kentucky on December 1st, early next week on ACC Network. Big Ten ACC Challenge, they'll see Wisconsin December 9th, and then get to the start of conference play with a home game against the Wolfpack on December 16th, and hit the road for the first time on December 22nd at the Peterson Events Center.
Tell you what, not to look ahead, but it's going to be strange to see 3,000 or so people on December 26th when the Wildcats come to town. That, if anybody's ever been to that game, whether it's here in Louisville or down in Lexington at Rupp, that's one for the ages. In my biased opinion, the biggest rivalry in college basketball. But it's going to be, needless to say, a little different this year. But nonetheless, hopefully it'll be a great basketball game.
Yeah, seating capacity of this building is just a shade over 22,000. And they're allowing approximately 3,000 into the building this year. So I think one of the requirements should be, how loud can you be if you're going to be one of the 3,000 into the building? And just doing seating in the lower bowl this year, this could easily be an NBA arena. It's easily one of the best facilities in college basketball, and the biggest basketball-only facility in the sport, too.
Yeah, the KFC Yum Center, in my opinion, the premier arena in the country. Just unbelievable amenities all the way around, and has really been a boom for not only the program, but also the city of Louisville. I mean, in the last 10 years since the arena was built, the entire complexion of downtown has changed in a very positive way.
Weak side board, a nice stick back for Williamson. So 18 points for Carleek Jones to lead the way for U of L. And Williamson now has 17. Trainer with 11 and Slazinski with 10. Those are the four with at least 10 points for Louisville. Shamar Givens with 10 and Evan Kuhlman with 10 as well for Evansville.
And a good sign for Louisville to have a commanding lead like this in their first game when David Johnson has struggled. And a guy that we talked about, who one of their more experienced players coming back, did it. To me, what he just did right there on that play was very impressive. He struggled tonight offensively, got into foul trouble early, but still stood in right there, stepped in, took a charge, had a chance to pick up a foul if it was a block. And, you know, just to be able to do things like that is something you want to see out of a sophomore where he's learned from his freshman year.
Slazinski moved the feet before he put the ball on the floor. Draws a little bit of a glare, but it's hard to tell who's smiling these days, you know? Game number 1 as a Louisville Cardinal, Carlik Jones has been just as advertised.
Yeah, he's essentially done it all for Louisville today, no question. And it's what they expect, what they're asking him to do all year. Great job setting guys up in transition, coming off the ball screen there, stepping into a rhythm 3, knocking it down. And he's just a very complete all-around player. You know, we talked about last year, the only guy in the country to average 20 points, 5 rebounds, and 5 assists. And you know, in the back of his mind, maybe thinking, hey, Coach Mack, let me stay and see if I can get a couple more rebounds and assists, trying to get that triple-double. But nonetheless, a very, very impressive first game for Carlik Jones in a Cardinal uniform.
And in the first 4 minutes of this game, I think everybody was a little bit out of sorts, just trying to figure things out as they got going. And they have gotten to the free throw line better. They've offensive rebounded better. Part of that has been Evansville getting back down the floor to defend. But hopefully some of those things that Chris Mack was looking for are things that have played themselves out, especially in the second half.
Yeah, it's been a very good performance for them, no question about it.
And this is just the beginning of college hoops today on ACC Network. We've got Charleston and North Carolina. We'll see how their highly touted freshman class fares in their college debut. They've got Garrison Brooks, the preseason player of the year, in their front court. And then Charleston Southern is at Reynolds Coliseum for an 8 o'clock tip-off tonight on ACC Network and on the ESPN app. Who's the team around the league that you are most curious to see?
North Carolina, team we just saw right there on the screen. I think more so than anything just because we know how much they struggled last year. Garrison Brooks returns. They bring in a terrific recruiting class. And, you know, Coach Roy Williams, obviously a Hall of Fame coach, he's certainly not, they're just not going to have the same type of year last year. I think we all know that. But just curious to see how they are. I mean, it's, you know, for the returning guys from last year, it takes a lot on you from a mental toll to go through a season like that. And so, you know, you combine that with everything that's going on with COVID and 2020 and just everything that we've had to experience this year. And I'm very curious to see how they look, how they play together, and how talented and deep they are.
I'm intrigued by Duke as well, which they're picked second in the league behind Virginia. They're picked to win the league for the first time in almost 40 years. But Duke, you know, relatively speaking, has as little buzz as they've had in the last several years, which is not to say that they're not a talented team, but not the Zion Williamson, R.J. Barrett type of recruit coming in this year. But they're experienced. They've got Jordan Goldwire, who's a senior, and Matthew Hurt and Wendell Moore, who are coming back for their second seasons on campus.
Yeah, those three guys you mentioned right there, I mean, highly, highly recruited players coming out of high school, and maybe just haven't played quite as big of a role in the last couple of years just because of the talent they had, like you just mentioned. And you know, at the end of the day, Duke's going to be Duke. We know that. They're going to be right there when it's all said and done. And it's going to be an interesting year in the ACC, and conference play is going to be here before we know it. So I think we'll learn a lot early before we even reach the new year.
Florida State picked third. They've got Scotty Barnes, the preseason freshman of the year in the league.
Yeah, and that's a team that, you know, obviously last year was really, really disappointing with the tournament getting canceled, and certainly we understand why, but that's a team that a lot of people think had a chance to win a national championship. And we saw that in the draft last week. 2 players go in the lottery. And, you know, it seems like every year, no matter what he loses, Leonard Hamilton just replaces it with players that can step in and fill that role right away. So the Seminoles will be right there right in the end. And, again, it's just going to be one of those years in the ACC where it's going to be a battle every single night.
And that's a big part of the fun. Jalen Withers gets fouled as he goes. And Patrick Williams, a guy who his number 4 pick, wasn't a starter. Really impressive and indicative of just how good he is. And Cole Anthony had his season shortened due to injury. Good to see him go 15th overall.
Yeah, a lot of talent to replace there for both teams, obviously. But, you know, Florida State, every year it seems like they legitimately play 10 or 11 guys in their rotation. So they're going to have guys step in and fill those voids. But, yeah, for a 6th man to be picked in the top 5 of the draft, that just goes to show you how much talent they had last year and how good of a player Patrick Williams is.
Florida State had their season opener scrubbed. That was supposed to be on Friday against Gardner-Webb, but they had a stoppage in their program that stopped the game against Duke and then against Florida State as well. So the opener for the Seminoles not scheduled until Wednesday of next week, December 2nd, against North Florida. And that'll be here on ACC Network.
It's going to be interesting to see as the year goes along especially when you get into conference play. If a team has a COVID issue where they have to shut down for 10 or 14 days and they miss, they could, in 10 or 14 days, you can miss anywhere from 3 to 5 games. And so it's not like football where you play 1 game a week. If you're missing 3, 4, 5 games, where do you make those up on the back end? And then what if at the end of the year a team has played 3 or 4 less games than another team? And there's just going to be a lot that's going to have to be sorted out. But at the end of the day, I think we're all just really, really happy that basketball is back.
Yeah, you saw it in a way manifest itself last night with the first round of rankings from the College Football Playoff Committee of how much did games played factor in versus what you did factor in. And now the NCAA is heading toward a one-site NCAA tournament for the postseason, looking like it'll be Indianapolis, where that is going to take a massive effort, as the tournament is every year anyway. But it's not just the facilities where the games are going to be played. You're going to have to wrangle high school gyms and YMCA gyms all across the city and the greater area, really, to make sure that you get enough practice courts and space for teams to work out.
Yeah, I love the idea of doing it in one location. I really do. I think we've got a lot of ground to cover before we get to that point, but I think the eye test is going to be important this year for teams when it comes to seedings and NCAA tournament games, just because not every team's going to get to play the same amount of games. At the end of the day, it's probably just not going to happen. So a lot's going to be determined by the eye test and how teams have performed against other high-level teams.
Less than a minute to go. Louisville up 33 over Evansville. What's your biggest takeaway from this game today?
Well, Carly Jones has certainly lived up to the expectations I think he had coming in. A lot of unknowns about both teams coming in. We knew that. You see David Johnson there. Good job being aggressive. I think Friday is going to be a really good test for Louisville. Seton Hall, a very, very well-coached team, and Kevin Willard always there in the Big East at the end of the year. And it's good for Louisville to kind of get the nerves out early here against Evansville, but come Friday against the Pirates, they're certainly going to have their hands full, and I think that'll be a very good indicator of where they are as a team.
I think Louisville and Seton Hall, that's going to be a great game. 4 o'clock, ESPN2, Eastern Time. You have a team last year in Seton Hall that was Big East champion, and similar to Louisville, where you have a guy who was your headline player. They had Miles Powell, who didn't get drafted but ended up signing with the Knicks, and they lost Quincy McKnight, Romaro Gill. They are in a similar way to Louisville, trying to figure out who the guys are going to be to lead their team this year.
Well, one thing I know about Kevin Willard, having played for him here at Louisville when he was an assistant, is he's one of the best coaches in the country, and he'll have his guys ready to play come Friday afternoon.
Have that game for you with Fran Fraschilla on Friday after we get over our turkey coma from a good Thanksgiving. So that's it from the Yum Center. On behalf of our entire crew, my partner David Padgett, we thank you for watching. North Carolina and Charleston coming your way next from Chapel Hill.